Does anyone find it's funny it's called Sharpen My Axe, but I'm actually sharpening your axe? This is the Chapman Ghost Fret that I did a review on. I'll put that link in the description. One of the things I do on this channel, because sometimes it's too hard to rely on all the companies to send us product to review on this channel, is we keep funds in like a kitty so that we can buy product that you guys request that I review. In fact, about once a month, I do a review of something you guys request by actually getting that product and reviewing it. This is one of those guitars. Once I do that, a lot of times, actually most of the time, I then sell that guitar off to put the money back in the kitty and go to the next product. In this case, what happened was I did exactly that. I bought the guitar, reviewed the guitar, and now it's time for the guitar to move on. Now, this guitar was purchased by a patron member. A lot of times I offer the guitars to the patron members first. In this particular case, I wanted to do something different. So I asked them, the patron members, hey, anyone interested in buying this guitar? And if you are, I'd like to use it for one more video. So the person who bought this guitar agreed to have me do a Sharpen My Axe. So we're gonna set this guitar up to play great. We're gonna replace these two knobs. As you can remember, this one had the bent knob, and improve those, make those better. We're gonna go ahead and improve these pickups. I think the biggest shortcoming of this guitar, which I think the Chapman guys kind of address that a lot in their videos, that these guitars are kind of, you buy them and you put the pickups that you want in them. I'm gonna go ahead and replace these pickups. Luckily for us though, I think the tuning keys are pretty good. There's a graphite nut. And we're gonna go ahead and take care of those sanding marks that I talked about. We'll polish all those out. One thing I love about Rob is he seems to really enjoy it when people kind of trick out his guitars and you know, kind of modify his guitars. So hopefully we can do a good job today on this episode and make this guitar really cool. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is take these strings off. That's gonna be the most important thing. And then I'm gonna go over lightly what some of the cosmetic changes we're gonna be making to this guitar. I'm pretty excited about it, actually. So one of the things I like about the guitar is I like that they took the time to put these like satin finish saddles on the bridge. I like how they are in contrast to the black base plate. The only problem I have is there is no other places on this guitar that have that feature. So it's just kind of like this one thing and then everything else, the hardware is black. So what I'm gonna do is do an improvement to the sound and to the looks by changing out the saddles. So what's cool about these is they have graphite right in the center right there to save the string. I think they're actually called graphite string savers. Anyways, but they're gonna look great for two reasons. One, they're gonna kind of push that whole kind of motif of having the black and the chrome. They're gonna look better because I think they're chrome, and I'm gonna mess with them a little bit. So one of the things I'm gonna show you is this. First, I'm gonna use my caliper, and this is the first thing I wanna do. I'm gonna go ahead and just measure the distance between the back of the saddle and the bridge plate. Now I don't have to write it down, I can. I'm just gonna go ahead and lock this on the caliper so it's locked. And then what I do is just easily remove that saddle. Now, we'll have to fine tune the intonation later, but this is a fast, easy way when changing out saddle pieces. You don't have to worry about it, no fuss, no muss. And then once you do that, you're gonna duplicate that process 5 more times. Now that we changed this to chrome, which I think it looks a lot better, and when we do the setup, I think it'll be fantastic. I like that he's gonna save strings with the string savers, plus give it a cool exotic look. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is change out some of the parts on the tuning keys. So these tuning keys obviously are all black, and what we're gonna do is change out some heads and some washers to give it a kind of that same motif of the chrome and black look. Okay, so we're gonna do this by simply just go ahead and removing the current assembly. And sometimes it pays to have a tub tuner. So I have these, and what we're gonna look for is we wanna cannibalize a bunch of tuning keys. Now, believe it or not, what's nice about the tuners that the Chapman guys are using is they're pretty straightforward kind of Godot copies. So I have a bunch of Godot copies right here. So now it's gonna look like this. And then what we're gonna do is thread this back through, put a new washer, go ahead and snug the guy down, and voila. so now that we've done the tuning keys, I was thinking about changing out the string trees to chrome, and I decided that would be too much chrome, because again, we're trying to do a black and chrome kind of mix. So what I'm going to do is replace the screw, black string tree, with the chrome screw in the center, and that will definitely kind of tie in that theme. So next what I want to do is go ahead and keep the theme going with this three-way switch. Now one thing I don't really care for is they used a nut like so, instead of using the kind of finished ones that you use on these type of switches. There we go. Look at that. Now a couple things to note as well. While the guitar was sitting, it developed a little bit of fret sprout, so we'll correct that as well. And that kind of works out great because I need to kind of finish up some of the sanding marks that they left on the side of the fretboard. We'll polish those out and be able to high detail polish these frets as well. So the number one question I get asked about in frets is fret sprout. And fret sprout is, of course, when the neck and the frets were put together originally at the factory, the frets were cut to the width of the neck. They were polished off or cut off at the ends. And then, because it's wood, the wood shrank, and now the frets are protruding out. They stick out. So we say sprout like they sprouted out, but really, they didn't sprout out. They didn't move at all. The neck did. So I've shown these before. You can get these from Stu Mac. Basically looks like a cuticle file. And sometimes for light fret sprout, light issues, if you have a little bit of sharpness on the edges, you can use this system right here and just smooth that out. It has a kind of coarse end, a less coarse end, and then a fine polishing end. And I find these work great. In fact, these already feels a little better just doing that while showing you. But I want to show you what to do when you have some serious fret sprout. So the thing about fret sprout, or this issue, is you're going to have to invest in painter's tape. Now I've seen a ton of ways that this is done, and there might be different techniques for sure, but I can only show you the one that has been successful for me. I am very gracious with the painter's tape. I find that painter's tape costs nothing compared to what damage costs. So don't be afraid to go crazy with it. Each fretboard is going to be slightly different. This is a rosewood fretboard and it's unfinished and there is no binding. So there's going to be a difference there. A lot of times people will tell you to buy these tools from Stu Mac. And what it does is, you can see it keeps the file at an angle. You put it down, and this is like a nylon block, so it's nice and slippery. I find it doesn't really work for me for fret sprout, and the reason is because the angle it's at. Fret sprout pops out and you need to be flat. So there is two tools that I use for fret sprout, and I have been using for over a decade, and they work really well for me. The first one, I'll put a link in the description. This is a finishing fret end file. You can see where one side is flat and one side is rounded over. This rounded over is very smooth, and what this allows us to do is put it against a fretboard without scoring or damaging the fretboard. It allows us to come at angles and polish frets, keeping that rounded side against this fretboard will definitely reduce or eliminate all damage to the guitar when doing this. Now, with that being said, there's a learning curve to this. So, you know, if you want to take your favorite guitar and start taking a file to it, that's on you. Now, this tool is the one I use the most. This one, hey, it's got my name on it. This one, in fact, I have a couple of these, but this one is kind of been around for a long time for me. It's a tried and true friend. You can buy this, of course, at Stu Mac. And the technique that I use, I kind of palm it like this, and I use my fingers. You see these fingers? All four fingers go right there. It looks exactly like that from the side. Now, the reason why, is because I'm gonna tilt this at you, is I use my fingers and I butt it up right there. You see how I'm doing this? And then, with leaving my fingers there, I can bring it against this. Now, why is that important? Well, because from the other side that you're looking at, I basically am using this to feel the wood so that I don't score on the wood. Now, if there was finish on the rosewood, like on a Paul Reed Smith guitar, again, I'd have to tape off all that as well. But in this case, I'm not gonna do that. Now, see how light you can, I'm not pushing very hard, I'm very light. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna catch all those fret ends. And I'll just go up and go up the fretboard and catch all those. Now that's gonna catch all those burrs and take them out. In fact, it already did. It's smooth already. Then I'll use micro mesh to go ahead and polish that all up, and I'll show you that in a second as well. The same thing can be done if you do go ahead and just use painter's tape, wrap it tight around each fret, do it that way. Again, I highly recommend that for anything that has a finish on the neck, finished necks, painted necks, maple necks, you gotta do it. So the next thing I use is micro mesh, and it comes in this box. You can find it online. I'll put a link in the description. I number them. I write numbers, there's 10 of them. I'll number them 1 through 10, just to keep my life easy. Starting at 1,500, ending at 12,000. Comes with a foam block. You wrap it on the foam block. And this sometimes, so you know, is all you need for a fret spout. Now again, you sometimes want to take this off. In this case, in this guitar, I don't want to because I'm going to make this feel a certain way. I want this to feel a little bit broken in, soften the edges. Sometimes I find inexpensive guitars, what they do is they cut the wood at it straight down, and they don't spend any time rolling the edge. And so this is going to help roll the edge. You can see a combination of the metal and the wood dust in this, and I kind of like that. That's a preference for me. Again, some of you out there won't like this, so don't do it this way. If you're curious, get yourself take your old inexpensive first guitar you don't care about in your closet and give this a whirl. Now right now this feels amazing to me, and I haven't even done anything else. So right now we're at 4,000. And like I said, we'll continue up the sheets until we get to 12,000. Now we're at 8,000. 8,000, if you guys recall, is where I like to start polishing frets. That's where you'll start seeing these guys start shining up. Okay, so now these things feel amazing. They feel like a really expensive guitar. Now sometimes when you're doing this and you're kind of rolling them, you might feel a little barb right there. A little barb sometimes sticks out. That's when you'll use this. You use that rounded edge I talked about. And there you go, just remove that. And again, now you'd want to polish that back up. We have the pickups out, so now we're going to install some new pickups. So in the bridge, I'm going to use a pickup called a Golden Age pickup by Stu Mack. That's right. They gave me a bunch of trial, and some are some Alnico 2s and Alnico 5s, and this one is an Alnico 5. Even though it's a PAF style pickup, which is going to give it a vintage tone, I think it's going to make this guitar sing. But more importantly, I think the Alnico 5 is going to have a little bit more bite, a little more highs, a little bit more lows. I also picked this one because, not that it really matters, but this one is a 2-conductor wire, which means it has no ability to coil split. And that's fine because we're not going to coil split this bridge pickup. When I wire up the coil split, what I'm going to do is wire only the neck. It's something I have on almost all my guitars that way, and the reason being is, what I like to do sometimes when I'm playing is be in the bridge position and go to the neck humbucker, or pull up on this and be in the bridge position and go up to neck single coil. The other thing I like about this option is if I pull up on this and go to middle, I can be humbucker single or humbucker. And a lot of times I like to be humbucker single. So when you use 2 humbuckers, I think the neck always kind of feels overpowering. You really feel it come into the middle position. But when it's a single coil bridge, it's even. Now in the neck position, I'm gonna use an Alnico 2 pickup. Now this is also a PAF style pickup, so it's gonna give a kind of a vintagey tone. However, this one has an Alnico 2 magnets in it, so they have less pull. So to me, in my opinion, that gives the pickup more sustain. It makes it less of aggressive, which makes it nice for solos and clean. And it really cleans up nicely when you use a coil split. This is obviously the bridge pickup because we're doing 2-conductor right here. So we're gonna have the hot and the ground. And then this is obviously the neck pickup. Now a couple things I wanna note was this is the old wires. Something I don't like when I see it, this was put together with, there you go, with electrical tape. Me personally, you know, it seems kind of lazy. So, you know, cheap electrical tape. I use shrink wrap, And you can buy a master pack like this of every kind of size shrink wrap there is, and I use small zip ties. So I find that once you solder it up, use the shrink wrap, seal everything, zip tie it all together. And a habit I get into is kind of like a car mechanic. I drop cloth around the guitar. So I'll go ahead and make sure the area that I'm working on has drop cloths around it. Something like so, just to keep it clean and nice. And here's the thing that's just important when you use shrink wrap. Because it shrinks when it gets heat around it, make sure that you keep it far away from the point in which you're going to solder in a minute, because it is going to make it shrink. Okay, apply your heat gun, and look at that. It's very, very clean. Neck pickup is all wired in. Now, the bridge pickup is going to be much easier. As you can tell, same thing as before, we have this really messy electrical tape. Okay, and on these, what a lot of people like is you just push back, and that's how you do it. That's your ground, and that's that. Okay, so obviously this is the old jack, this is the new jack. You can see it's going to be a little better. These pure tone jacks are a bigger improvement than these inexpensive ones. I still like Switchcraft. I might like Switchcraft more than these, definitely as much as these for sure, but there's things I like about both. Okay, so we're gonna put some 9s on it, and I decided to put some Slinky Cobalts. Now, Ernie Ball's not a sponsor or anything. I don't have any string sponsorships, but I thought these would be fun because we haven't done them before, and I actually kind of dig these strings. There's something about the Cobalts that sound great. Funny thing to me is I don't think people talk about it enough. I like softer, warmer output pickups, lower output pickups that have a warmer tone with brighter strings. And then I sometimes like higher output pickups with warmer strings. I think there's some magic to mixing your strings and your pickups. So I have a feeling with this guitar, I'm gonna warm it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and brighten it up a little bit with these strings. Well, here you have it, the Chapman Ghost Fret with all the modifications that I think make the guitar improved. Not only do we have the two-tone hardware, which I think is really cool with the chrome and black, especially on those tuning keys, a little different, a little out there, but I love the way the chrome pickups look. They sound fantastic. I couldn't have wanted anything more for a tone, so I hope he really enjoys it, because I think this has just enough attack. It sounds ferocious enough for metal, but still clean enough for rock and blues. This thing sounds sweet and creamy, and in the clean, I think is just not only clear and defined, it sounds like pretty much every tone I've been looking for. So let's give you a little comparison. I'll give you a little taste of the original pickups and components with the new ones to see how it sounds. Let's check out his clean. So there you have it, the Chapman Ghost Fret with some new pickups, new bridge assembly, some new cosmetic pieces to make the tuning keys and other parts look nice, a pure tone output jack, and a fit and finish on the neck to improve it in every way that it performs. I really want to thank the patron that let me sharpen this guitar, and I hope he enjoys it. And I want to thank all of you for spending some time with me today, subscribing and supporting the Sharpen My Axe series. This is a series I'm very passionate about, and I think you guys are too, and I'd like to see it keep going. And as always, I want to thank you for your time, and until next time, know your gear. Bye.